I'd like to call to order today's Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting. At this time, if we could have our opening comments, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we still have just the 8? Okay, then we will not be able to vote on the minutes for the previous meeting because the person that was absent is one of our 8. So we will move on to the agenda. We'll go through each item here and determine which ones we will hear and which ones we will not hear. So we'll start off with subdivision 210007, which is a final plat of West Wind Estates Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? West Wind Estates Edition. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. Next, we have sub 210023, a one-step final plat for Kimberly Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? One-step final plat for Kimberly Edition. Hearing none, we will take that item on consent. Next, we have sub 21-00025, one-step final plat for Marinita Third Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Marinita Third Edition. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve items 2-1 through 2-3.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Bill Johnson, second by Mr. Warren, to approve items 2-1, 2-2, 2-3. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We now have a quorum, more than, I think we have 9
That is correct, sir.
on line now. So we will go back to the approval of our minutes from the May 6th meeting.
Move for approval. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McKay, second by Mr. Warren, to approve the minutes. We have Josh Blick is the only person that I see that was absent. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Those abstaining, aye.
Aye.
Mr. Blick. So the motion carries 801. Thank you. Okay, moving back to our regular agenda. Where we left off is the vacation items. We've got vacation 21-0019, vacation of a platted utility easements in areas zoned general office, limited commercial with protective overlays, located at 13710 West Maple. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Vacation 21-00019, located at 13710 West Maple. Hearing none.
I move to approve agenda item 3-1.
Second.
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Ms. Miles, second by Mr. Florence to approve item 3-1. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our public hearing cases, we have CUP 21-0009. It's a minor amendment to Women's Crestview Village DP 35 limited commercial property located at 2037 and 2055 North Woodlawn. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case?
Yes, I would.
Okay, we will hear this case. Item 4.2 has been deferred to our June 17th meeting. So we will move on to our next case, 4.3. It's a conditional use, 2021-000.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry for interrupting, but would you check to make sure that the agent or applicant
Thank you.
is there on that first one?
Thank you very
Thank you.
much for bringing that to my attention. Is there anyone virtually here for CUP 2021-0009? Yes, they are here. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Van Zant. Okay, moving on to the next case, 2021-00018. City conditional use to allow safety services, a police station located at 903 South Edgemore. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Conditional use to allow safety services, it's a police station at 903 South Edgemore. Hearing none, we'll take that item on consent. Moving on, we have a conditional use 2021-00019. It's a conditional use to permit entertainment establishment and a nightclub located at 1007 North Cleveland. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? We will hear this case. Moving on, we've got a PUD 21-0005, zone change from B to PUD to create the High Plains Development PUD number 85, located at 1705 North Harvard. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this item on consent. Next, we have zone request to rezone a portion of properties located at 37th Street North and the east side of Hoover Road. That would be zoning case 21-00017. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. We will hear this case. Next, we have Zone 2021-00018. It's a zone change from general office to general commercial, located at 1621 South Ida Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Zoning 21-00018, located at 1621 South Ida. Hearing none, we will take this item on consent. Next, we have zoning 21-0019. It's a zone change from B multifamily to general commercial, located on the east side of North Hydraulic and located east of North Hydraulic on the west side of North Kansas Avenue. Sorry about that. Is there anyone in the on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case located 200 feet east of North Hydraulic Avenue on the west side of North Kansas Avenue? Hearing none, we'll take this item on consent. Next, we have Zone 21-00020. It's a zone change from limited industrial to central business district with Delano overlay, located at 334 South Oak Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Commissioner, this is Josh. I just have a question at the end after you ask everybody.
Okay. Is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Zone change from limited industrial to central business district. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. Do you have your question, Mr. Blick?
Yeah, my question is just for staff. Was there anybody that emailed or contacted the office in opposition or in favor of this?
So that was Matt's case. Did we hear any?
I'm not aware of any, sir, but let me confirm with Matt.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just confirmed that staff did not receive any comments on that case.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We will take that on consent then. Next we have Zone 21-00021. It's a city zone change from limited commercial to neighborhood retail and general office, located at 13710 West Maple Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm not quite sure how to do this, but I am a resident over here. And I'd like to, I guess, hear exactly what's going on with it.
Yeah, you would like to hear this case?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make sure that our agent or applicant is online. I think I've seen Mr. Linda back.
Yes, I'm here and available.
Okay, thank you very much. We will hear this case then. And then moving on to Zone 21-22. It's a zone change from MF 29 to general office to neighborhood retail. And it's located at 344 North Hillside. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, and is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Zone change from multifamily and general office to neighborhood retail located at 344 North Hillside. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 4.3, 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, and 4.11.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We have no BZA meeting today, so our first item will be 4.1.
Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. Philip Zievenbergen with Planning Staff. Item 4.1 is CUP 2021-09. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the Wilmer's Crestview Village Community Unit Plan, DP 35, to permit a car wash on the eastern portion of Parcel 4. The property is zone limited commercial and is generally located on the west side of North Woodlawn and about a block south of East 21st Street North. Parcel 4 in the CUP is platted as lots 1, 2, and 3 in the GPS 3rd edition. The application area consists of just lots 2 and 3. Again, as you can see on your screen, lot 1 would be the Johnson's Garden Center west of it. Formerly, these lots were developed with a bank and a restaurant. The bank was directly at the corner of Shady Brook and Woodlawn. The restaurant was on the lot to the south of it. The plan is to raise both existing buildings and develop a car wash oriented north to south with one access point off of East Shady Brook and one access point off of Woodlawn. There are currently 2 access points to and from Shady Brook for the northern lot, and there are 3 total access points to and from Woodlawn when you combine both lots together. The applicant will be closing the unused drives along both of the rights-of-way. The subject property, if it was not in a CUP, would require conditional use in order to permit a car wash due to the residentially zoned property to the south. It's that brown property, that's B multifamily. The supplementary use regulations in section 3D6F of the Unified Zoning Code require a car wash, a conditional use for a car wash when it is within 200 feet of residentially zoned property. Because this is in a CUP, amending the CUP is in lieu of doing a conditional use because the public hearing process is the same. The supplementary use regulations also contain regulations regarding setbacks, fencing, paving, lighting, signs, noise, circulation, parking, drainage, and maintenance. Those are attached in your staff report. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail just because all of those will have to be met and maintained in order to receive building permits. If you want to go to the site plan, Paul, the site plan illustrates landscaping, which is required by the landscapes ordinance for the city of Wichita since the property abuts an arterial street. The plan shows landscape street yards along Shady Brook and Woodlawn in addition to parking lot screening. Planning staff has already reviewed and approved the landscape plan. This is just done ahead of time. It doesn't mean the use is going to go in, but they are able to submit it ahead of time in the application process for us to review. The character of the surrounding area is predominantly commercial with retail stores and fast food restaurants and other commercial properties. Property to the north is zoned limited commercial. If you want to go back to the zoning map, Paul. Limited commercial in the same CUP, which is DP 35, and it has a fast food restaurant. Further north is more commercial property right at the hard corner of 21st and Woodlawn. Property to the south is zone B multifamily with apartments. Property to the east is zoned limited commercial in DP 67 and is developed with retail stores and restaurants, and property to the west is zoned limited commercial within the same CUP as the subject property, and it's the Johnson's Garden Center. Property was platted in 1981, and that was the same year that the CUP was approved as well. At this location, North Woodlawn Boulevard is a 7-lane arterial road. If you want to go to the aerial, I say 7 lanes, that includes the center turn lane. As you can see, the lane that directly abuts the eastern portion of the property for southbound Woodlawn is an auxiliary lane that comes off of the turn lane from 21st Street. So vehicles can turn from 21st Street to southbound Woodlawn, stay in that lane as they merge into traffic with through lanes into Woodlawn, or that lane can be used to access the commercial properties without having to tie up the through traffic going southbound on Woodlawn. Shady Brook is a paved local street with sidewalks on both sides. I should say that Woodlawn has sidewalks on both sides as well. The red line of the box around our property is hiding the image of the sidewalk that you can see. And there are municipal water and sewer are available on site, and Wichita Transit has bus stops along East 21st Street. Comprehensive plan, which is the community investments plan, identifies the property as appropriate for new residential and employment mix. This designation allows for a mixture of residential and commercial uses that are compatible with each other. It is defined by saying, due to the proximity of employment centers, residential uses will likely be of higher density. Due to the proximity of residential uses, employment uses likely will have limited negative impacts associated with noise, hazardous emissions, visual blight, and odor. The area is also within the established central area. It's in the very northeast corner of it. Again, that is defined. It goes all the way up to 29th Street. So this being at 21st and Woodlawn, the northeast corner of the area is 29th and Rock. So this is kind of in the northeast corner of this established central area. But regardless, the area is defined as a community core and is in between an area of stability and an area of opportunity. It's kind of a transition zone in between those two areas. A community core is a mixed-use center of 80,000 to 250,000 square feet of commercial use, arranged around one or more centralized nodes in a distinct corridor. The centers most often occur along major intersections with commercial and mixed use, so very much describes the 21st and Woodlawn intersection. As I said before, it's a transition area between what's defined as an area of opportunity and an area of stability. An area of opportunity is a space that really needs some strategic investment to help stabilize and promote economic development. So since it's in between the transition zone, in between those, strategic investment is definitely a priority to help continue to stabilize the economic growth and viability in the area. A lot of what Places for People talks about is promoting walkable developments and definitely a little more focus on a pedestrian environment. This doesn't necessarily hold to the true nature of Wichita Places for People. It is a car-centric use. However, when it comes to the development of a hard corner like that on two arterial streets, if you're looking at redesigning the whole area or if you're looking for it to conform to Wichita Places for People, it would really be the holistic redesign of the entire intersection. So yes, this will be having parking closest to the street, which is not necessarily in line with Places for People. However, one way it is it's closing multiple driveways, which actually increases safety for the pedestrian environment. By closing driveways, you minimize or reduce the number of interactions between a car and a person if somebody were to be walking. Even though it does not align with Places for People, it is consistent with what is already developed in the area. Again, to be more consistent with Places for People, it would take a basically overhaul and redesign of the entire commercial corridor to start bringing buildings closer to the street instead of the parking. Overall, staff is recommending approval, subject to several conditions. Number one is that the language for Parcel 4 shall be amended to state that it would allow a car wash, and to add the language of saying subject to Section 3D6F of the Unified Zoning Code. One thing that needs to be added to the conditions of approval is something that came after the writing of the staff report. Staff did reach out to city traffic engineering. Though this is the first car wash case we're hearing, there are several club car wash cases coming through in subsequent meetings from now. And there's been a bit of a hubbub around the area of potential traffic impacts and what does that mean. And so we've reached out to city traffic engineering to determine possible traffic impacts and if any traffic studies were needed or anything that they might want in this area to help mitigate any negative impacts with potential increase in traffic with a car wash. They requested that along Shady Brook from Woodlawn to on the north side, if you count the third driveway to the west, I think I measured it's about 240 feet. The first two are the driveways for Burger King, and then there's one more just like to the west. Basically from Woodlawn to there, having lane markings installed. The right-of-way or the roadway is 36 feet. You can get three 12-foot lanes. So you'd have a through-lane traffic for east and westbound, and then you would have a center turn lane. Effectively, what that would do is cars turning in from Woodlawn if they're looking to go into the car wash, can go into the center turn lane and get out of the way of through traffic along Shady Brook, because the lane markings, right now there's no lane markings and it's just understood it's a two-way. There's on-street parking permitted. Along the stretch where the lane markings would be installed, there would be no parking signs installed as well, because the lanes would go directly up to the curb. And so that is one way to mitigate potential traffic impacts if the car wash were to back up into Shady Brook and then also somehow back up into Woodlawn. This will help keep traffic in the center lane for them to wait to get into the car wash property, versus it just being on Shady Brook, and there's really no designated lane for people to go through or people who are turning. So that is something that staff would like to add to the conditions of approval as you consider making your motion this afternoon. And then our final ones are pretty standard of it only applying to parcel 4 in the CUP. All the other parcels in the CUP do not allow car washes, and they would have to be amended in order to do so. And the applicant needs to provide the revised copies of the CUP drawing to staff. The findings for our recommendation is the character and the zoning of the neighborhood, as we talked about briefly. It is predominantly commercial. There's the apartments, which are high-density apartment complex to the south. The supplementary use regulations and the conditions of approval should minimize negative impacts to the surrounding area. The suitability of the subject property for which it had been restricted. So what can you do with the way it's been zoned? It's currently zoned limited commercial with DP 35. If DP 35 and the residential zoning district not exist, then a car wash would have been permitted by right in limited commercial. So there's no special conditions of the zoning that's there. It just happens to be this these circumstances requiring the amendment to the CUP, as well as the location or the proximity of those apartment complexes. If we remove these restrictions and allow the car wash, what could be detrimental impacts to the surrounding neighbors? The provisions of the community plan, the conditions of approval, and the supplementary use regulations should minimize negative impacts around the site. The current property is not vacant as currently zoned. It was just formerly developed as a bank and restaurant, and those went out of business presumably. Well, Barnard's moved to the west side because they're cool. If I can put a personal anecdote, west side, best side. And we're happy to have them. And presumably the bank, worked with a real estate transaction with Club Car Wash as they look to develop the site, so we can't really say it's vacant. Relative gain to the public health, safety, and welfare. The approval of the request will allow development of the property for a neighborhood serving car wash. Denial would presumably represent loss of economic opportunity for the applicant and landowner. And finally, number 6, conformance with the comprehensive plan. We already covered that in the staff report. We can go through site pictures real quick if we want to jump ahead. I'm on the east side of Woodlawn looking northeast. This is the other CUP across the street. You can see there's a gym, the Vasa Fitness in the background. There's a Wendy's fast food restaurant. Next picture. This is looking to the northwest. You can see the Burger King across the street from where the Club Car Wash will be. That's looking towards the intersection of 21st and Woodlawn. Next. This is looking southeast at the commercial development that is across the street. Next picture. And this is looking to the southwest. There's the former Barnard's restaurant, which would be the south portion of the car wash. And then you can see the apartment complex south of that. Next. This is looking due west. This is the bank property. That will be the north end of the car wash. And you can kind of see where the entrance to Shady Brook is. I believe the driveway directly in front of us is one of them that is being closed. And this will be going to DAB in June, so we do not have any recommendation. Well, they don't provide a recommendation to you, but They provide a recommendation to City Council. They have not weighed in on it. If you want, we can see as a building rendering. I think that's before the pictures, Paul. Sorry to make you jump around. The building rendering, I think it's after the site plan. Maybe we didn't include it. In your packet, you had a building rendering of what the building is going to look like, which complies with the architectural standards of the CUP. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Warren.
So the sidewalk that's covered up by a red line, obviously, I'm assuming that the sidewalk will be required. Will they be using the existing sidewalk and just adding where they're making changes? Or are they going to do a whole new sidewalk, or what's the plan on sidewalks?
I don't know, but it will have to stay. Like, I don't think Public Works would allow them to take out a sidewalk. Let me see.
And does the old sidewalk meet current standards for sidewalks?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm not sure they're actually going to be touching the sidewalk in their development because the sidewalk is within the right-of-way.
Okay, but they'll have to be doing something where they remove into the access point.
Right, and then they'll just have to match it. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff from the commission?
Dang it, Gucci.
Cindy, did you have a question? No, okay, thank you. So do we have the agent or applicant here?
Yes.
Thank you, and you could state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes, please.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Trish Voth, Fulston Siefken, 1551 North Waterfront Parkway, Wichita. I'm presenting and responding to questions here in person on behalf of Club Car Wash, the applicant. Also virtually, we have Eric Kirchner. Eric is with the engineering company that has designed and been working with planning department staff on this application. As well as we have Justin Barnes here personally with Club Car Wash, also available to answer questions. So the three of us be happy to cover any questions that you have in this time. We believe that staff did an excellent job of analyzing the property, and we can agree with staff's recommendations and analysis of the property. We would like to be respectful of your time, so I will not repeat all of the same information that you have already received from staff. I certainly can provide a couple additional supplemental comments that you might find helpful. As staff described, the property is within a CUP, so we are here solely because to add specifically to the CUP car wash as a permitted use. The CUP already permits as permitted uses of vehicle repair and a tire store and a garden center and EMS uses. So we believe adding a car wash as an additional use allowed by the CUP is very consistent with the uses that have been allowed historically at this property. We agree that this area fits within the plan as an area of opportunity, seeking investment. As to staff's factor discussion in the report, compared to the potential loss in value or hardship imposed if the application is denied, staff noted denial would presumably represent a loss of economic opportunity to the applicant and the landowner, and I can confirm that that is true. As to the recommendations of staff in the staff report, again, we concur with those recommendations. Because we are able to visit with you today, I would like to confirm, verify recommendation number 1, which is that the CUP be updated to allow the proposed use by adding car wash as an approved use. The text says subject to section 3D6F of the Unified Zoning Code, which again, we concur with staff on that. Just to be clear, item 1 of that subsection, would be the item that requires conditional use approval. And as staff just described, this hearing is intended to cover the Planning Commission and if city approval if necessary on that particular topic related to car wash. As to the additional recommendation that staff described that didn't make it into the written report, I would just ask Eric Kirchner, who is available virtually, to confirm if he has any additional comments to provide to you on that, since that's in his area of expertise. Eric, are you still there?
Thank you, Trish. I don't see any issues with doing the striping on East Shady Brook Lane. If it is 36 foot wide, that would provide for 3-foot lanes. Striping of the roadway in that situation would create the center turn lane, which would create the safety zone for the turning motorists. So I do not see any issues with the condition number 4 that the staff is asked to add on.
Great. And then I know there was a question from commission or comment related to the topic of a sidewalk. Eric, I appreciate that this is the use hearing and you're still working on the plans themselves, but anything on that question or comment, Eric, that you're far enough along to respond to at this point?
Yes, so the sidewalks that are there will remain and will be used in place. I believe one of the commissioners mentioned, where we take out the existing driveways, obviously, we'll have to add sidewalk back in, and that is the case. Where we take out the entrances, we'll put ADA compliant sidewalk back in its place and connect to the existing sidewalk. So the sidewalk on both sides of our project site will remain for our future use.
Great. Then at this time, I would simply ask if commission has any other questions for myself or Eric or Justin.
Do we have any questions for the agent applicant? Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Warren?
The other question I've got, it has to do with these kind of operations that have staff, and so they're normally only operate when staff is in the presence of the facility. Is that something that needs to be put into the CUP, that hours of operation, or how do we? I mean, right now it's staff oriented, but it could get automated, I suppose, at some point. Would that need to be something that we would address, hours of operation in the CUP?
Philip, is that something?
It is definitely within your latitude to put a condition on the hours of operation. I would suggest asking maybe what their current ones are, so that you're not necessarily imposing more when understanding what you're saying is typically they're staffed right now for some standard hours of operation. So maybe take some guidance as to what their current hours are before you make a recommendation as to if you're going to be limiting them. But I see what you're saying is over time it might just become automated, and we don't necessarily want it going off at like 2:30 in the morning. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, this is Jeff Van Zant. There is a city ordinance pertaining to hours of operation, and I failed to read that last night, so it's not off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I can't identify it, but we can certainly work with the applicant and staff. They would have to comply with the ordinance on that anyway.
That's a great point. Thank you. Any further discussion or questions on that point?
Are there any other questions for the agent, all of her representatives? Hearing none, we will now open it up to anybody in the council chambers that have any comments? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to speak to this case?
Yes, I would.
If you could state your name, address,
Yep.
and you have 3 minutes, please.
My name is Kathy Bowles. I live at 2021 Siefkin. I'm in the leadership committee of the Crestview Heights Neighborhood Association, which this business will be within our borders. Having lived here for 26 years, I have seen a steady increase in negative traffic through our neighborhood, particularly on Shady Brook, with regards to its abutment to Woodlawn. And I also know that quite a few of our disabled residents from the timbers that also fall within our neighborhood utilize Shady Brook to get to Woodlawn and 21st. I have concern that the increased traffic flow from a car wash would make it more dangerous for quite a few of our residents. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Bowles? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to speak to this case? Hearing none, we'll bring the conversation back to the agent for a rebuttal.
Absolutely. Again, we'd be happy to respond to that comment. Eric Kirchner, are you still available?
I am, yes.
Great. So I know you have also studied this topic, so please feel free to supplement. But the car wash use, traffic density would not be higher than the traffic density for the two uses that it's replacing. I think that addresses that concern. Eric, anything to add?
No, I think that addresses it. I agree.
Would it be,
Okay.
Can I assist in any other way at this time?
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Fox?
I've sometimes experienced these car washes where the traffic entering does back up because, as I understand it, it will go through a line and there'll be like the queue line to get in the car wash could potentially back out onto either of the streets. Is that accurate?
Depends on the company and their design. And again, I will let Eric, since he's the engineer, their company designs all of the club car wash sites throughout the 6 states that they're in. And while he's preparing to respond on that, generally the club car wash designs their site to be large enough to have a very sufficient stacking queue to eliminate that in almost all instances. Once in a while, when there's been like a snowstorm, there could be a bit of backup with some properties. But so far, the Club Car Wash brand here in our Wichita area has not had a problem with that. They have 3 operating sites right now. Eric, anything to add that would be helpful?
Yes, I would like to add the site plan that we have before the city right now with the operation of Club Car Wash. It operates 2 stacking lanes for the receiving, and you can see that on the drawing that's up on the screen right now. The inside lane closest to the building is for what we call cash customers. So those are the people that come in and pay with credit or cash at the window. The outside lane is for members only. So they own monthly memberships. They come in and enter the gate, and it scans a code on the windshield of the car and allows them to then move forward from the gate and into the car wash, and the 2 lines merge together going into the car wash. The site that you see before you has capability of stacking 27 cars on the site before it gets to the little island on the north end of the car wash. So it could potentially stack even more than that before it gets out on Shady Brook. One of the other operational items for Club Car Wash is their car wash can process about 2 cars a minute. So with that processing capability and the stacking that you see on a plan like this, which is pretty typical of their sites, it will process cars pretty quickly, which helps prevent backing out onto local streets.
May we provide any further information?
The only other thing I would ask if the striping of Shady Way is a part of the proposal, and I've seen like stronger lines at crosswalks, particularly across Shady Brook, where somebody in a cart or a wheelchair, where they're lower and harder to see. If the cars, encroach upon that crosswalk, it seems unsafe. So I wonder if there's a way to make sure there's adequate crosswalk striping when Shady Way is restriped. Is that possible to request?
We'll have, through this process, Club Car Wash will have to work with Public Works and Utilities and determine what are the standards. We can definitely pass along that striping at crosswalk across Shady Brook be recommended.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, I do have a question.
Yes, Mr. Florence.
As far as noise, I know it's the only residential area there is south of this, but have there been any study about the noise effect produced by this car wash?
Philip, should you speak first on noise before Eric could answer anything on that?
Let me grab my stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Florence, the supplementary use regulations in the zoning code address the noise in that they will be in compliance with the noise standards of the Unified Zoning Code. And so it is an enforceable thing if noise were to exceed a certain decibel level. I don't have that level off the top of my head, but if it were to be appearing that way, complaints could be filed, and it is an enforceable thing where if it is too loud, then Club Car Wash has to be in compliance with the noise compatibility standards of the zoning code.
And Mr. Chairman, just to add a little bit more to that, I'm looking at the municipal code for the city of Wichita, where it refers to excessive noise levels. And in place, the city has from 8 to 10 p.m. in residential areas that can only be 55 decibels. So there's a specific measurement of the amount of noise and a specific time frame. And then that reduces from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. It goes, instead of 55 decibels, it goes down to 50 decibels.
Thank you.
Does that help, Mr. Florence?
Yes, I just remembered on the west side we had an issue with a car wash similar to this. So yes, I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
Great, appreciate your time.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission for action.
I have a question for staff.
Yes, Mr. Blick?
Yeah, I noticed this lot's pretty big, and item number 13 talks about drainage, and it says that it's been cleared through works or has public works and so forth. I didn't know if this might flag because of the size of the lots and stuff and how big this project is, because I remember Chick-fil-A and some of the others had to have some underground drainage and some other extra drainage on this. Does this affect it at all?
Drainage is reviewed at the time of building permit, so they'll have to, any plans that are submitted for building permit are reviewed to be in compliance with the drainage plan that is approved on the site. If it is not in compliance, then drainage has to come into compliance. Their plans would have to change in order to address any type of drainage before they would have a building permit issued.
Okay,
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here for the whole presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Yes, Mr. Warren.
Chairman, I would move to approve per staff recommendation, including, I'll call it recommendation number 4, striping in accordance with their recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Warren, and I think the second was Mr. Florence?
Blick.
Or was it Mr. Blick?
Josh.
Mr. Blick, okay. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And abstentions, 1. Okay, next we have conditional 2119 at 1007 North Cleveland.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kathy Morgan for the Planning Department. This project is located in the National Register listed historic Dunbar Theater in the McAdams neighborhood. As you can see from on the screen, 9th and North Cleveland has some neighborhood commercial zoning, a mix of residential, single-family, multifamily, and duplex zoning. The applicant is requesting the entertainment establishment and event center because they want to be able to have fundraising events where they will be providing alcohol, that type of thing, social events. This will not be operated as what we think of as a traditional nightclub. If you remember, we went through this with the bowling alley at Town East. So this is very much that way. It's not intended to be club rodeo or anything like that. It's so that the nonprofit organization can provide facilities to the community and also have fundraisers for their building. This is in the McAdams neighborhood plan that was adopted in 2003, and as you can see on the map here, would you go to the McAdams neighborhood plan I think we have that in there. No, do we? No, I'm sorry. The McAdams neighborhood plan does call for this to be a commercial hub for that neighborhood. There was mention of a boulevard type system where they could have like little pocket parks from 8th Street up to 13th Street along Cleveland. That is a very wide street. There are sidewalks on both sides of the street. There is currently parking on both sides of the street. It is also located in the Central Northeast Area Plan update, which was adopted in 2005. And their first priority in this area was to increase neighborhood capacity, to build participation, organizational and leadership capacity among the area residents. And this project, is a community-led project. It's a nonprofit organization that is working on this. They've been working on it since the building was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 2008. So this has been a long-term effort. And then the Wichita Places for People plan. This is an area that is an opportunity area that is working toward a little bit more stability. This is a very walkable area. There are transit facilities, bus stops in this area. And so staff would recommend that the conditional use be approved with the following conditions noted in your staff report. The consumption of alcohol and entertainment will only be allowed within the building located at 1007 North Cleveland Avenue. Any change of use or occupancy will require an amendment to the conditional use. And then the recommendations are based on the findings that are in the area plan updates, McAdams, Central Northeast, the Places for People, and the suitability of the subject property. It is currently zoned GC, which permits community assembly, and the property can continue to be used this way. So the conditional use is only adding another option for the owners to increase their ability to provide for the community. The conditions that are required will mitigate any noise. There won't be any outside noise. There's on-street parking near the facility and accessible sidewalks, that type of thing, to the facility. The impact should be minimal to city water, utilities, water and sewer. The lines are already existing. This shouldn't place any more demand on that system than when it was operating as a theater. So staff is recommending approval of this request. And would you go through the slides, please, Paul? So this is an area, the building outlined in red. Next. This is the future growth concept map from the community investments plan. And as you can see, that location is right on the edge of commercial and residential. So this is a good fit with the community investments plan. Next. The applicant provided us with a drawing showing the 350-foot area, or 300 feet area, I'm sorry. The school, the Dunbar School, the historic Dunbar School is there at the southeast corner of 9th Street and Cleveland. And so this is another reason that this application, this use requires the conditional use application. And I believe that's all the slides, and I will answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Kathy? Kathy, I just have the one here, well, I may have two. You said the parking will be street parking?
Right, and there, I'm not aware of, I don't remember looking at the site if there's other parking that the applicant, or other lots that the applicant owns. The applicant is here and could probably address that.
Okay. And then yes, Mr. Wavell.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that the applicant has indicated that they would like to do phased development of this over time, so they'll have more information about parking, both short-term and long-term.
Okay, thank you. And then secondly, and maybe it's just me, but whenever I see something that is going to be a nightclub, I get a connotation of a nightclub, and I know that what we did at Town East explained that and expressed it and took care of any concerns that some might have. And you've also addressed it here, that it's not a traditional nightclub. Are there things that we could do to ensure that it is not a nightclub per se? I think that neighborhood might have some concerns or issues if we were to open this up and eventually it could turn into a nightly occurrence of being a nightclub.
And yes, the conditions can be modified to add that language that would limit the use only to when there are community events, that type of thing, and that cannot operate regular business hours as a nightclub would, from whatever at 8 a.m. in the morning until 2 a.m. the following morning.
Yeah, okay.
So, yes, there's...
I know, I get that, and I just, every time I see it, though, I have to rethink it for myself. So, thank you very much, and we may want to add some kind of language like that into this. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
My question is along the same lines of what you were presenting, as to knowing exactly what's going to happen with this facility and this location. I'd like to know a little bit more about who the Power Community Development Corporation is. I think it's reasonable to to look into who the people are that are doing something like this, as the case that the city council considered on the motel to be put out by the airport. They made a decision that those particular people probably weren't a good fit. So I don't know. Do you know who the people are behind this?
Yeah, this Power CDC is a group that we have been working with in the Historic Preservation Office. I have been working with them since the property was listed, and they have been planning for this development, like I said, since 2008 when the property was listed. I believe Mr. Arbertha is in the audience, and he can answer questions about Power CDC and what they have planned for this location.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, Ms. Miles?
So, does the gentleman that owns this building also run the nonprofit organization? Or does the nonprofit organization own this building?
Mr. Arbertha owns it? And no?
So he's running, he owns the building and he's running a nonprofit to generate funds to restore a building and increase the value in a building that he owns?
Okay, Ms. Miles, I'm gonna let the applicant come up and address that. They're more familiar with ownership.
Yeah, we'll get that. Okay, Cindy? I'm gonna see if there are any other questions for staff, and then I'll bring the agent or applicant up to address the commission.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Witt.
Scott Wadle from the Planning Department again. I can confirm on GIS that it is Power CDC that is shown as the owner according to county records, which is the same as the applicant for this case.
Did you catch that, Cindy? Ms. Miles, did you catch that?
Okay, so he doesn't have any, he doesn't own the building. He doesn't have any personal investment in the building.
It is Power CDC that is showing on the records.
Okay, it's strictly under Power CDC.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Yes.
I just
Ms.
wondered
Hall?
if we knew the operating hours of the Dunbar Learning Center, and maybe that could be used in consideration of the hours of operation, of events, et cetera.
I currently don't, I don't know if it's coincides with regular school hours, and they could have summer activities there. I would presume that the events held at the theater would be evenings and weekends, and not, certainly not before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, would be my estimation.
Any other questions? That may be an agent or applicant questions. Okay, hearing none, do we have the agent or applicant? If you could please come forward, state your name, address, and you have 10 minutes.
My name is Tony Rangel. I'm with LK Architecture, 345 Riverview, Wichita, Kansas, 67203. I'm the agent for the applicant, Power CDC, Power Community Development Corporation. Power CDC is a nonprofit housing development organization who's been in existence for more than 20 years in Wichita, developing housing in the 67214 district. One of the things that they find value in is trying to enliven and lift up the neighborhood through other development. They've been involved with the Save-A-Lot building to bring a grocery store to the neighborhood, and then subsequently creating a community center for the neighborhood, which would be the Dunbar Theater. Ultimately, the Dunbar Theater is a multi-phase project that the intent is to recreate or redevelop the building as a theater. It is a $6 million venture to try and get that building turned into a theater again. It's pretty well gutted. There's no seats, there's nothing in there. So $6 million is a long ways to go. The city of Wichita has granted Power CDC some funds to help develop the center as a community hall in the meantime, until they can raise the balance of the money that they need to turn it into a theater. As a community hall, basically it will become a large room, event space that can be rented out. The intent is to rent it out over a period of time so that they can help fundraise to get to the point of developing it as a theater. Ultimately, there would be some multiple phases to add concession, additional bathrooms, an elevator, a stair, a pre-function space, those sorts of spaces as an addition, as well as an ultimate phase to add a visual arts center so that it becomes a cultural arts center in the McAdams neighborhood. The reason for the conditional use permit is clearly and only to allow for consumption of alcohol on the premises within 300 feet of a public school. That's meant to be for fundraising events. There is no intent for this to become a nightclub. Say it one more time. No intent for this to become a nightclub. Unfortunately, within the language of the city of Wichita ordinances, there's only one path to allow for consumption of alcohol, and that is to identify this as entertainment in the city, nightclub in the city, and those things. And it's unfortunate that that name is in there, and if there needs to be some additional language added, the applicant would be more than happy to do that. The uses essentially would be for fundraising, community meetings, community functions, weddings, religious activities, religious worship in the facility, things like that that they could rent the hall out for. And the applicant is online. He's online virtually, so if you want to ask a question of the applicant, you may. Hours of operation was a question. And generally, they haven't established those hours of operation. During the day, it would more likely be sort of an office function, or if they rent it out to a community establishment that might want to use it as an office or meeting space during the day. And then in the evenings, as I mentioned, if there was a group that might want to rent it out for a wedding or an event like that. Similarly, on the weekends, if there's a religious organization that want to rent it out for worship, then they would be using it during the weekend. And we're currently in conversation with USD 259 to help us with the parking arrangement. So that's one of those multi-phase things that we're working on. This particular function would not require a great deal of parking as a community hall. And we've been in conversation with MAPCD and the Development Coordinating Committee on that. So we've gone through that road already as well. We plan to submit for a building permit here in the next week or two, and so it'll be going through that process. And then back to ownership. Power CDC, again, is a nonprofit agency, been in the community for more than 20 years, primarily focused on housing development, but this is the neighborhood that they work in. And so this is one of the other ventures to help enliven the neighborhood and lift up the neighborhood. And be more than happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Rangel? Yes, Mr. Dewell.
Sir, can you give us any specific examples of properties that this nonprofit corporation has developed in the past?
Well, I mentioned the Save-A-Lot is the one commercial project that I'm aware of. I couldn't give you all the addresses of the houses in the 67214 district. I don't know if you could provide that supplemental information from the planning department.
Well, anecdotally, from doing previous environmental reviews for the planning department, I'd say it was easily more than a dozen properties in vicinity of this.
Thank you.
Quick question, since you're the architect of record on this, what is the capacity for that building?
It will be 49 occupants.
49? That's
That's it.
max occupancy?
Maximum
is that
occupancy
COVID
allowed by the fire department.
Post-COVID or?
No, there's a fire department requirement in order to allow it to be occupied as a community hall. When it becomes a theater, 325 seats is the goal then, and parking will be addressed in that phase. That's actually a phase 3, somewhere in the future when we have fundraised for $6 million.
Okay, thank you, because that was my main concern, seeing the size of the building. 49 people, I get that, parking isn't going to be an issue. 325 people, yeah, parking is going to become an issue. But you're addressing that in the phase 3 of this.
Yes.
Of this development, so thank you. Are there any other questions for the agent? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have to leave.
Okay,
I'd
Mr.
like to
McKay.
make one comment.
Yes.
Answer Mr. Dool's question. Anybody drive up 135 where the police academy's at? All of that housing back to the north and east is what Power CDC has been doing. They've done other than that, but that's the obvious one that you can see. And the story you're referring to is at the corner of 13th and is it Grove?
Yes.
Grove. So that, Bob, I'm just doing that for informational purposes because I do have to leave.
And I'm very familiar too with Power CDC's work. We work beside them and this neighborhood, and the redevelopment of this theater has been a long-awaited dream with a lot of energy and attention to it. So if this can help them, and that there only 50 people can be there. If it was going to be 500, it might be something to worry about a little bit. But the residences in the area are pretty far away from the theater. It was really a vibrant business area at one time, so a lot of potential for other business development.
Yeah, I can remember back before I retired from the city 11 years ago, the Dunbar Theater was a topic of conversation back then. I'm glad to see that things are actually happening.
Me too.
Happening there. Any other questions, I'm sorry, for the agent? Hearing none, we'll open it up. Is there anybody in the council chambers that would like to address the commission on this? If so, if you could please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. Janet Reddick, 1510 East 9th, president of the McAdams Neighborhood Association. I've donated to the Dunbar Historical Building, but for a nightclub, when Mr. Randall, I spoke to him personally, he told me dancing and alcohol. So my question to him was, that's a nightclub. We don't want a nightclub in our neighborhood. We had nightclubs in our neighborhood, and it brought death. It brought gun violence. That's what it brought. James Alberto do own the Dunbar. He owns that building. So anything that's revenued in that, he gets that money. It's not for the neighborhood. Yes, he built houses. Commend him on that. But he's also hurt the neighborhood, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure you'll hear that in a lot of other people. People are upset that he's putting an entertainment establishment nightclub in the theater. We sold to him for a theater, nothing else. If you look at his website says that is restoring the Dunbar Theater and building an educational building, a gallery, a community office, a retail and cafe. People have sown deeply into that, deeply. We've seen nothing. So for you guys to let him come in our neighborhood and just throw anything up, every person is not a nightclub in a alcohol place that's in that neighborhood. We have respect for our neighborhood, and that's what we want. No nightclubs. We don't want this at all, in any way, shape, or form. Any questions?
Do you have any questions for the speaker?
Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else that would like to address? Yeah, please come forward and state your name and record, or name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's John Reddick, 1510 East 9th. That's my wife. I figured I'd let her go first. I gotta go home with her, so.
That's a good idea.
We pastor a church that's in that 300 feet area too, 9th Street Church of God. And I've lived in that area for 22 years, and if anybody's from Wichita, they know how bad 9th Street was. Like I said, I lived there for 22 years. I've had to take on gang members drilling drugs. I've had to take on people having sex up and down Mathewson. I'd go out there and put my personal safety in danger. My wife mentioned a death. There was a motorcycle club directly across the street from this, which Albertha and them, they all know everybody. So once you open up the door for this place, they're going to be right back. And they didn't care about city codes, city times. They opened at 3 o'clock in the morning. We complained here at the city for 2 years. It took a 23-year-old girl getting killed, laying out on the sidewalk, and Sunday morning, my congregation they couldn't go down 9th Street because it was blocked off. They had to go all the way around to look at a dead body from a nightclub that wasn't even supposed to be open. That was After Hours Club. You drive by there today, the Fat Ass Motorcycle Club, the sign's still up there. So to me, they're just waiting to get a chance to come back into our neighborhood. Like I said, I've lived in the neighborhood for 22 years. We pastor a church. We're trying to do the right thing. I would like to see Power CDC do the right thing as promised. I've brought people to invest as a theater. I've brought him several people that's invested. There was such a thing called the Nehemiah group he was trying to start that was supposed to be in for the youth, to trouble people in the neighborhood, sold into it, brought people there for the meeting, and he does have a building at 17th and Hydraulic. Why don't he open the club in that building and leave Dunbar as Dunbar? We'd love to see a theater. We'd love that. That's what we've paid into it and gave money to this organization. Power CDC is skirting it, but James Albertha does own the building. I guarantee that. That's all I have to say. John Reddick, 1510 East 9th, and we pastor the church that's in the 300 area block right there. Oh, one more thing. It's a double stop corner coming up from 9th Street. I live a block east of there. If you come west on 9th Street to Cleveland, you have to stop at the stop sign. You have to pull up again out in the street to look, because the buildings are right on the sidewalk. And there's no parking for 49, 39, 29 people. They got to park in the street. And when that club operated, they was all up and down the street. People fighting, beer cans all over the place. It was just a mess. And please don't allow this.
Okay.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, your time is up, but hang on just a second, please. Are there any questions for the speaker?
Do you know approximately the years that the former establishment was in operation there?
It's been a couple years ago.
A couple?
The lady was Kelly Shaw that died. She died out on the sidewalk to a private club that was just supposed to be members only, but they had a line clear down the street, people getting in. So I can imagine what this is going to be. Alcohol, guns, it don't mix.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next.
Stating my name is Farm McCoy. That's farm, like a farm, F-A-R-M, McCoy.
And your address, please?
And my address is 1128 North Mathewson.
Okay, thank you.
Just right around the corner from that.
Okay.
I moved in that neighborhood in 1998, August of 1998, the first. And shortly after that, I've always been told that it was a bad neighborhood. But God said in my heart that it wasn't, because I was looking for a home for myself and my two little children, and we moved in the neighborhood. And as we moved in the neighborhood, it would have been a lot of gang members around there, but they have all moved away now. A lot have gotten older, and but during that time, we did lose a young lady, a baby, what was somewhere between 4 and 10 years old. The little child got killed there, right just 2-3 houses away from that corner. I think that would be like about 9:20, 9:45, I think that's right, in that house where they were shooting and carrying on. After that, things went good, and they spoke of this nightclub, and it became bikers, and we had problems with that. So as we went on, time went on, which was around by 2012, 13, was when all these things were taking places, where they started to have that Dunbar Theater. And I've been learning about the historical, about Dunbar Theater. And we all have been very proud and glad to hear that Dunbar Theater was coming in. And I'm like, wow, a theater right around the corner from me. Well, my children have grew up, but I got grandchildren. And I'm looking forward to seeing this. But what I don't understand is that they're going to have this here and have alcohol served in it. I've never seen around a school district, and I work in the school district, that alcohol is served that close, especially where there's children. And Dunbar, I do work at Dunbar now. I've been there 5 years. And the people would come there and work there were scared to come in our neighborhood. And I actually looked at them on a lot of things that they said. And I said, no, not here. I've been here over 20 years, and none of this have happened. Yes, we've had some incidents that took place. We have had incidents that taken place. But you all are safe here in this neighborhood. Y'all just as safe here as you would be anywhere on the west side, on the east side, on the north side, or the south side. Right here in this community, you all are safe, because they love to get out and walk around the block for exercise. And then, you talk about the children and things. Yes, we do still have children there. But I also want you to know that Dunbar School do go late at night.
Your 3 minutes are up.
All right. I just wanted to let you know that, and thank you all.
If you can finish up in 30 seconds or so, I'll let you.
Dunbar School does work late at night. They wake up until 8 o'clock. I want you all to know that. It do. Okay. And for alcohol to be around, I disapprove of that.
Okay. Thank you. And do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none, thank you again for your testimony today. Next, ma'am. Name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Carla Jackson Patton, 1919 North Spruce Avenue, Wichita. I do not live directly in the Dunbar district, but I have been a supporter of the Dunbar Theater renovation since they've acquired it. Power CDC has acquired it. And my concern is, if the capacity of the building is only 49 people, what kind of event could you have that would generate enough revenue as a fundraiser or whatever to warrant rezoning? That's just kind of my question about it. And the language of nightclub, it is a mixed community with, there's no commercial down there right now. I was born in that neighborhood. I can tell you that some of the housing the Power CDC has built are right across the street from the Dunbar. So you would have residents that live directly across the street from the venue. If it were to be deemed a nightclub, if people have been dancing and drinking and partying and reveling, when they come out, it is going to spill out onto the streets if what you're saying is true, that it won't be used as a nightclub on a weekly basis, night to night, but the language still is troublesome and to me. And then, like I say, 49 people maximum capacity. If you had a wedding, you may have a couple of hundred people that are in your wedding party or whatever. So that's just my concern. How would you generate enough revenue with this concept to warrant the rezoning? Perhaps there could be some other way of, like on a case-by-case basis. Some people hire like a licensed bartender or whatever to cater their events or whatever, or you hire a caterer with that licensing. But I don't see the necessity of rezoning specifically for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none, thank you again for your testimony. You could state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
James Roseborough, 4518 Greenbrier. Good afternoon. I'm representing WIN, the Wichita Independent Neighborhoods. Yes, we are still existing. The virus just slowed us down for just a little bit. And we're here today to, you heard all the speakers before me. I'm not going to go over that again. Everybody thank Mr. Albertha and the Power CDC for trying to do the Dunbar Theater. The question that's really out there, and I've been asked this by many people, why do we need to rezone this as a nightclub and to sell alcohol? Nobody wants that. If you're going to do things for nonprofit, come to venues that where you can raise money without selling alcohol. You heard the danger and the trouble that they've had up there in that area when that was the motorcycle club there. And something else, safety is the major concern. You can say, well, the alcohol is going to be on the inside, but when the people get drunk, they come on the outside. And that's where your trouble's going to start. Noise. I live quite a ways from there. Everybody know where Greenbrier? At night, when that motorcycle club was there, we'd get waking up in the morning, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, zoom, zoom, and noise. So all we request here is just do the will of the people from that community and listen to them. They know better than me, any of you, if you don't live there, of what's happening. But like I said before, the confusion is why rezone that as a nightclub and sell alcohol. No, that's not a good idea. There's too much alcohol in this city now. And what's going on, the crime and all that, why contribute to it? Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for the speaker?
Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, thank you very much.
My name is Reginald Forbes. I stay at 935 North Mathewson. I am just right around the corner. I just would like to add my voice to what everyone else has said. We live in the neighborhood. We have seen the bad things that have happened in our neighborhood, and we have tried to do something. As it's been stated earlier, sometimes we do have to come outside, and we do have to run off someone that is parked in front of your house doing things that you don't know anything about. Those are things that we have to do to protect our neighborhood, to protect our children. We have a lot of new families in our neighborhood, and they have children with them. No one wants to see their children come out and look at cigarette paper, bottles, cans, and whatever else that someone has decided to throw out of their car on our streets. We don't feel that we need to live like this. We all have had high hopes about the Dunbar Theater. I myself, I'm 66 years old. I went to that theater as a little boy. I used to cut the coupons out and go to that theater. So I have fond memories of this neighborhood. I only wrote down a few questions, but just about everyone has already covered these. But I just don't understand why the Dunbar Theater couldn't be used for something else besides delivery of alcohol. I just don't understand that. If it's for the kids, if it's for someone learning something, a learning center, I think that's great. But to open up some place that someone is going to be drinking, coming outside, and as the gentleman said earlier, things don't just stay inside. People come outside to argue, they come outside for other things, and this is our neighborhood. And we would like for you to take that into consideration when you make your decision. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none. Are there any other that would like to speak? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Gotta keep track of my time. Hi, my name is Raymond Shellman. I stay at 530 North Indiana. I've stayed in that McAdams area since 1990. I feel like I'm pretty familiar with it. When I was a bit younger, my brother and I attended Dunbar. My mother would give us a quarter for lunch, and we would eat chili and crackers at Turner Drugs and have enough to go to the candy store. So pretty familiar with the area. My concern likewise is some of the same things others have said, is that at the corner of Cleveland and Central, there was a club that wanted to open, and a lot of the same sentiments I heard. Some of the major concern is that was parking on the street, because there was inadequate parking, as well as it was talk of it being used for an event center, of course. That seemed to be where the problem came in at, because the owner, while they would rent it out to others, then they would be there all times of the evening, and seemed to be kind of detached from it. Once it was rented out to somebody else for the evening, that's where you'd see a lot of the drinking and the kind of club atmosphere. And so I'm very conscious of that same kind of language being used about this place. And likewise, I can relate to when you start parking the cars along the street, then it impedes traffic, it seems, and I'm not sure if it meets the noise standards in the evening time like that or not, but traffic seems to speed up. Even had an incident in the club or restaurant event center that was at Central in Cleveland, where one of the patrons was crossing the street and was hit by a vehicle. It was pretty serious. So we hear about those kind of things. When you have an environment like that, it tends to increase other issues and problems. And as a resident in that area, I just don't think that's the thing is best for that.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you. Do you have any questions for the speaker?
Thank you.
Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission concerning this case? Hearing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? Anyone virtually? Hearing none, we will bring it back to the agent or applicant, and you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you. Tony Rangel, agent for the applicant. The concern about the hours is certainly something we can address within the request for the conditional use, and the types of uses in the facility are certainly things that we can address as well in response to some of the concerns that have been expressed by the speakers. And I think that's it.
Any
I have a
questions?
question for the speaker.
Yes, Mr. Blick?
Yes, on one of the attachments, there is a letter that said, "Dear Sally," and then all the way on the very, I think it was the second paragraph in that, it says, "The board will establish rules and standards for consumption of the alcohol in the facility." Have they already established those rules or anything, or are they working on those?
They are currently working on those with the Department of Housing and Community Services, who is providing the grant for the remodel project that's currently being planned. That's who Sally is, by the way, the Director of Housing and Community Services.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, yes.
Is there a fully operating board of directors for this nonprofit, or is Mr. Arbertha the only agent for the nonprofit, or is he the only person representing the nonprofit?
No, there is a board of directors.
And are any of those members here today?
I don't, if they are, they're on virtual.
Okay.
Any other questions for the agent? I guess I do have one. There was one of our speakers was asking, with a capacity of 49 people, how does that work for it to be a fundraiser, or an opportunity to raise funds for the Dunbar Theater? Weddings are going to have 100 to 200 people.
Indeed, they would be small weddings or small events. And fundraising doesn't occur all through event activities at the theater. Fundraising is also going on through the form of grants that we're writing grants for, also working through philanthropic organizations who on occasion want to come and meet in a private meeting. Might be, a dozen people in the facility just so they can experience it. And again, that would potentially, not everybody, potentially might want to have a glass of wine or something like that. So we realize 49 occupants trying to raise $6 million on $2 a ticket would take an awfully long time, but that's not how we're raising our funds. It's just one of the functions that was mentioned. Most of it is a community center operation, open to the community to be rented out for those purposes that the community might find value in. And, it might be a meeting, could be DAB, has meetings there, for instance, DAB 1. So it's that type of operation, and fundraising is not entirely planned to be through renting out the facility. Okay. It's actually a stipulation of HUD for the grant that they make some money by renting out the facility, but it's not, that's why it's not a big fundraising opportunity. It's mainly to satisfy the HUD requirement.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you, and we'll bring it back to the commission for action. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Well, to start with, I understand the way everything is labeled nightclub. There's certain things that are nightclub and some that aren't quite nightclubs, but it still falls under the same. What I like about this particular situation, it's a conditional use. If anything's not followed, it can be immediately pulled off and they can't do it anymore. It's a beautiful old building, and being in the construction business, I would like to see it become a valuable piece of property. And since it is a conditional use, I think that the owner or the group needs to understand that they need to control what's going on, whether it's too much alcohol, too much whatever, and take a chance on losing their conditional use permit. So I'll approve it.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Mr. Warren.
Several times a year, I get invited to functions with wine and cheese, and they expect to get into my pocket. And I understand those kinds of fundraisers, and there's a level of responsible drinking. And then unfortunately, within our language of our rules and regulations, we have to use, that kind of event has to be done in a nightclub because of the way that our rules. The flip side of that is that the speakers that we've had here today have brought up a lot of instances that a nightclub would be detrimental to this neighborhood. And what I'm saying here is that I don't think the applicant is ready with a set of rules and regulations and safety net that would keep this facility from being used in a way that would be detrimental to the neighborhood. I would like to see that come up, that if it was responsible and would add to the neighborhood, I could go for it, but I don't see that at this point. So my leaning is to deny the application at this point. If the applicant would like to get together, put together a plan that could be incorporated into our rules and regulations that would satisfy the neighborhood that this could be done safely and responsibly, then maybe, but I don't think that they're at that point, so I'm going to be sitting in opposition today.
Yes, Mr. Dool?
I just simply don't think that this is a good location for establishment to be serving alcohol. It's the kind of events that they've described, I mean, that makes sense, but this is in a neighborhood that the people here have testified has had a lot of problems over the years, and I don't think at this point approving an establishment to serve alcohol is a good idea.
Yeah, Ms. Fox, you have?
I made the ultimate mistake today. I saw Janet and Carla and James in the audience, and I know them to be great supporters of the Dunbar Theater and people who really want to see it happen, and I assumed they were here to say, yay, hooray. But I heard something totally different, and that says to me the neighborhood isn't buying into this as an opportunity for events, et cetera, and that disturbs me greatly. If it's really a neighborhood that's being rebuilt and vibrant, then let's make sure we all agree on how we're going to make that happen. And so I will be opposing the approval of this today.
Mr. Johnson, do you have something to add?
Kathy, if this was farther than 300 foot from a school, what requirements would have to take place to do this?
JR, can I, if it was not within 300 feet of a school, it's the use of the nightclub would be allowed, or would they still have to go through a conditional use?
J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning. To answer the question directly, it's not just the school. The code requires 300-foot distance from a school, public or private, residential zoning districts, parks, and churches. There's residential zoning right across the street, if memory serves me correctly, and immediately adjacent to the north. So it's not just the school that was a protected class in this instance. If there were no protected classes within 300 foot, it'd be by right. There'd be nothing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I think now the gentleman mentioned that the school extends into the evening, and I believe that reminds me that Dunbar School is also an adult education center and acts more like a community center. Is that accurate?
I'm getting some confirmations out there. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
JR. Is there anyone else on the commission that would like to comment?
So I'm going to share some of the other concerns that have been shared. I just don't think at this time that this is an appropriate use. And I have some other concerns as well. So I'm going to make a motion to deny.
Second.
So we have a motion on the floor to deny by Ms. Miles, second by Ms. Fox. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I think we'll do a roll call, possibly. We'll just,
Yes, sir.
yes, all those in favor of the motion?
I'll take it away. All right, Mr. Green.
Nay.
Bill Johnson.
Nay.
Mr. McKay is absent.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think
Yeah,
it's a negative motion, so I think we need to make sure we understand what we're.
yeah.
Motion
So
to deny.
the motion is to deny the application, and I'm sorry, but I support denying the application. My bad. Aye.
So aye.
Thank you.
Bill Johnson?
Nay.
Mr. McKay is absent. Gross?
Nay.
Fox?
Aye.
Aye to deny.
Aye
Aye
to
to
deny.
deny.
Duel?
Aye.
Blick?
Aye.
Nix is absent. Foster is absent. Warren?
Aye.
Joe Johnson is absent. Miles?
Aye.
Hartman is absent. Florence?
I'm abstaining.
I'm sorry, yeah, Florence is abstaining from this vote.
Okay. So in that case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes in favor of the motion to deny, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Okay, motion carries to deny the request, so. Moving on to our next case, Mr. Zevenbergen.
Good afternoon again, Philip Zevenbergen, planning staff for the record. The next case is a county zone change request, zone 2021-17. The applicant is requesting a zone change from single-family SF20 to GC General Commercial for a 5.9 acre portion of land they own, generally located on the east side of North Hoover and approximately 1/4 mile north of West 37th Street North. It's also right at the on-ramp for K96 and Hoover, if we're familiar with that area, or near the on-ramp at K96 and Hoover. The site is less than 6 acres, or the portion they're looking to rezone is less than 6 acres. Therefore, it is not required to be part of a CUP. The intended use is for self-storage units. The applicant provided a site plan which depicts one access point off of North Hoover. The driveway becomes the concrete paved main drive aisle between the 2 rows of storage units. The site will have 2 side aisles to provide access to the north and south sides of the storage unit. So if we go to the site plan, you have 2 rows of buildings, center drive aisle, and then they can circulate around to the north and south side to have access to the storage units on that side of the building, those sides of the buildings as well. The property to the north is zoned limited industrial with protective overlay 286. With industrial lots, most of them are undeveloped, but there are some that have started developing with industrial uses. Property to the east and south are zoned SF20 residential. The abutting land is owned by the applicant within the same tax parcel as the subject site. The remaining SF20 land is undeveloped agricultural land. Further south is SF20 single-family residential as well. It's that kind of flag-looking parcel you see in the center of the screen. It has a single-family dwelling with accessory structures. Property to the west is zoned single-family residential SF20 with single-family dwelling and a private lake. That property to the west has several conditional uses which permitted and extended timeframes for extractive uses likely to create the lake. Within 1/2 mile east, it's not on the map in front of you, it's zoned LI Limited Industrial, and it's the active landfill that you see on K96 near West Street. Even though the property to the east and the south is owned by the applicant, solid screening is required due to the differences in zoning. Section 4B2 requires solid screening anytime commercial zoning abuts residential zoning, even if it's owned by the same person. The site plan indicates the presence of berms on the south side. However, they do not appear to be contiguous, meaning it's not a solid line. And there is no indication of any screening on the east side. Section 4B3 permits the use of berms in place of 6-foot solid screening fence, but the berms must have a continuous screening to the same degree as if it was a 6-foot solid screening fence. Additionally, the screening is not within the area that is subject to the zone change. The area subject to the zone change is not a separate parcel. It is just a portion of a larger parcel under the same ownership. The zoning code just requires that the screening be in between the commercial and the residential zoning, so it doesn't necessarily require it to be within the area that is getting rezoned, since this is under common ownership. To ensure that the screening is maintained by the owner of the storage unit, one item in the protective overlay we'll go over in just a second will address that if there is ever a lot split, that the portion of land on which the screening is installed shall go with the GC zoned land. So if they ever want to split this off and sell it off to somebody else, they have to split off more than the general commercially zoned land. They would have to split off the portion of the land with the screening to go on top of it, because the screening is required to be maintained by the owner of the commercially zoned property. So if there becomes a new owner, they need to maintain that screening, so they need to own it, if that makes sense. A revised site plan and landscape plan shall be submitted, revising the screening to be in compliance with the applicable standards. Section 4C requires commercial properties abutting residential properties to comply with compatibility setbacks based on the width of the lot. The compatibility setback for this property is 25 feet. This applies to the east and the south sides. The buildings on the east side do comply with the compatibility setbacks. However, the site plan shows that the setback on the south side is only 20 feet, so it is not in compliance with the compatibility setbacks. So either the applicant needs to apply for an administrative adjustment to reduce the compatibility requirement, or the site plan shall be revised to show a 25-foot setback to the building. This point was discussed with the agent for the applicant yesterday. We'll go over the specific item in the protective overlay. It is important to know that the protective overlay can only restrict. He wanted to know why the protective overlay couldn't just reduce the setback. Protective overlays can only be more restrictive with the zoning. Protective overlays cannot give license to alleviate conditions, meaning you can't reduce a setback with a protective overlay. And because this is not in a CUP and it's just a simple zone change, they would have to file the administrative adjustment or comply with the compatibility setbacks. Had it been put into a CUP, the CUP provides the flexibility to, through review of planning staff members, to have the flexibility to adjust the setbacks within the CUP, because the CUP governs the site. Again, they chose to be underneath 6 acres and chose not to apply for a CUP, so a simple zone change does not have that ability or flexibility to adjust the setbacks during this public hearing. One item that I did discuss is that if it is recommended by the Planning Commission, the Board of County Commissioners would have the ability to waive the compatibility setbacks. You guys don't have the authority to do so, but would take your recommendation, and then the Board of County Commissioners would have to support that recommendation to waive those compatibility setbacks. That would be one way of handling the setback on the south side, is if you guys, per your recommendation, the compatibility setbacks be waived. But it takes the Board of County Commission to approve that. The property is unplatted. Oh, wait, just a second here. The protective overlay that has been applied to this property for your recommendation is akin to protective overlay 286, which is the protective overlay for the limited industrial properties abutting this property to the north. Figured if that's more intensive zoning and this is a protective overlay that was placed on there, it is really good fodder to have similar type of development for intensive uses right next door. If that was put in place to protect the area, then similar things need to be put in place on this property to continue to protect the area that is also residential. The property is unplatted, and in order to obtain building permits, platting is required. The site has access to North Hoover Road, which is a 2-lane arterial with a paved multi-use path on the east side. Wichita Municipal Water and Sewer Services are available on the site, even though it's in unincorporated Sedgwick County. The comprehensive plan identifies the area for new residential and employment mix. This category is described as encompassing areas of land that will likely be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses of a predominantly mixed nature. Due to the proximity of higher intensive business uses, residential uses will typically be of higher density. Due to the proximity of residential uses, employment uses will likely have limited negative impacts associated with noise, hazardous emissions, visual blight, and odor. The zone change request is in conformance to the comprehensive plan. If limited industrial was permitted to the north, general commercial is actually a less intensive zoning classification than limited industrial. So staff is recommending approval with subject to protective overlay number 370. I'll go over those items here real quickly. The first one is a list of use exceptions. Again, I used protective overlay 268 and basically applied it to what would be excluded from general commercial as well. So it's very akin. What you find on this exclusion list are lists of uses that are also excluded from the limited industrial properties as well. Screening shall be per the zoning code, as I mentioned before. Any fences or walls shall be constructed of any consistent pattern or color. They do also have the option of doing that landscape berm, but again, it has to be contiguous screening. Storage of merchandise shall be allowed outside an enclosed building only in compliance with the general screening standards of the zoning code. And the following additional standards: no outdoor storage or work areas shall be permitted in any building setback. No required off-street parking space or loading area shall be utilized for storage. Items stored outdoors shall be screened from view from North Hoover Road and within a distance of 200 feet from any residential uses or residential zoning adjacent to the south and east. This is because in general commercial, outdoor storage is a permitted use by right. There are some standards in there, but since this was an item in the protective overlay, again, for the limited industrial properties, figured it was, again, good to apply to this property as well for consistency. Item number 4 is what we said before, that if there's ever a lot split, that the portion of land that the screening is on needs to go with the commercially zoned property, just so that the owner maintains it in the future. Roof-mounted equipment and loading docks, trash receptacles, ground-level heating, air conditioning units, and several other things, including portable storage units, if they're there, shall need to be screened. All signs shall be limited to those allowed in limited commercial zoning. Again, the limited industrial zoning to the north, their protective overlay limited their signs to limited commercial. So again, for consistency and fairness of how these properties are treated, we felt limited commercial. Since they restricted limited industrial property down to limited commercial zoning signs, general commercial still more intensive and would allow more signs than limited commercial. We again felt it would fair to follow that same suit. And then that statement at the bottom: the applicant shall submit a revised screening or landscape plan or submit an administrative adjustment to handle the setback issue. But again, if it was per your recommendation, a compatibility setback can be waived by the Board of County Commissioners with a recommendation from this Metropolitan Planning Commission. The findings for our recommendation: the zoning and character of the neighborhood. We discussed all this before. With limited industrial to the north, general commercial is less intensive. The majority of the single family residential around there is agricultural land. And then the one on the private lake is very heavily buffered away. The restrictions in the protective overlay and the compatibility setback should mitigate any negative impacts. As it's zoned right now, the property can support single-family residential with homes on lot sizes down to 20,000 square feet. If we rezone it to general commercial with a protective overlay, this would allow the redevelopment of the site with general commercial uses as restricted by the protective overlay. With LI, limited industrial zoning abutting to the north, the request for general commercial zoning is not unreasonable. Historically, the land has been used for agricultural uses. Approval would allow for the redevelopment of the site for a storage facility to be used by members of the community. Denial would represent loss of economic opportunity by the applicant or owner. We've talked about conformance to the comprehensive plan. Approval of the request should generate no additional impacts on community facilities. Existing public infrastructure at the site will accommodate uses under the proposed zoning. I'll just note that I have not heard any public feedback on this. Again, I mentioned I had spoken with the agent for the applicant yesterday regarding an item in the protective overlay. This will be going to Citizens Advisory Board 4 for County District 4, which is Lacey Cruz's district, on June 14th. So we're a little bit ahead of the game in our cycle right now for DABs and CAB meetings. With that, I can go through the slides we have not seen yet. Here's a zoning map that we talked about. There's the area. You can see it's undeveloped. You can see the limited industrial properties to the north do have some buildings going up. Next slide. This is the land use plan from the comprehensive plan. Next slide. This is looking north towards K96. This is that shared use path I spoke of. The buildings that you see to the north are the limited industrially zoned properties. And so the vacant land directly to the right of the picture is the subject property that would be abutting those buildings. Next picture. This is looking at that limited industrial zoned building. The foreground in the picture is the vacant land that these storage units would be built. Next picture. This is looking south along Hoover. You can see the vacant land to the east, which is on the left-hand side. The west is on the right-hand side, is that single-family dwelling on the private lake. There's a fairly dense hedgerow there that it's pretty much a fortress. Next slide. This is looking to the southwest across the site that it would be developed. Next slide. And this is looking due west at the driveway into the single-family dwelling. I do not know if the driveways would line up. I think that would be something that would be addressed during platting, knowing they would be looking at the vehicular movements and the street network and whether or not they would want offset driveways or if they would want it to line up with this driveway or have it offset. But again, that would be handled at the time of platting. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? Hearing none, we could have the agent come forward, Mr. Ferris.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Greg Ferris. I thank you for the opportunity to actually show up in person and address you.
And can we have your address for the record, please?
144 South Bay Country Court in Wichita. When we made this application, we did not specify or put in our application that we wanted a protective overlay. I don't really have a problem with that. That protective overlay to the north was done because the owner that sold that property to him required that. This residential property to the south was not owned by the owner at the time, so the fact that there's a protective overlay to the north isn't necessarily germane, but we don't have a problem with it, so I'm not going to go into any detail on that. Other than some of the elements of the protective overlay we have some issues with. Do I have control or do I have to ask for the slides?
You probably have to ask for the
Can I
slides.
get to the zoning overlay map that showed the parcels? Yes. As you can see from the map, the outline of the parcel that this is going to be on. And the owner owns not only the parcel that's in dark outline, but he also owns the parcel all the way to the corner. He owns everything to the east there on that parcel and everything to the south. With that in mind, I think, and I understand where staff's coming from, they have a set of rules that they just have to follow. Here's the line, it's zone commercial, therefore everything's residential, we've got to follow certain criteria. We would ask that in condition number 5, or condition number 3, they're asking that the storage be enclosed, and we don't have any problem with the screening from Hoover, the visibility from Hoover. We understand that. But the last part of the last sentence is, and within 200 feet of the residential uses. We own that. We don't care if that's within 200 feet. So if there's going to be some outside storage, if that's eventually developed as residential, whoever's going to develop that, which is going to be us, I'm sure, is already going to know what those requirements are. We don't think there's a need for this 200-foot requirement that we can't have storage within 200 feet, or that we can't have which is in number 5, rooftop units. Because if you have your site plan in front of you, that would exclude any of the south property, any of those south buildings would then no longer be able to have anything on the roof. You wouldn't be able to have any outside storage. There's all kinds of reasons not to do it. Now, I understand that if this property to the south and to the east was owned by a different owner, why you would want those requirements. But why you're requiring these requirements when they're from our own property, we think is not necessary. So we would ask that you would approve the protective overlay in section 3, that you would eliminate the sentence immediately after where it ends North Hoover Road, period, eliminate the rest of that sentence. And then 5, the same thing. And again, it's because we own the property, we don't think we need to have those requirements from ourselves. The other, and can you get me the site plan, please? You don't have the site plan?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have a copy of the site plan?
We've got it in our packet.
In the site plan, you will see the south edge of the buildings. They made a mistake, and they show that there is a solid line along the north edge of the south buildings. That line should be moved, and we will do that in a revised site plan, should be moved to the south edge, and that would then produce a solid screen. So what we'd like to ask you to do is allow the buildings and that fence between the buildings in those open areas to be the solid screening. And it's without the site plan, it's a little hard to explain, and I'll be glad to answer any questions to get more clarification. But we would move that line down to the south edge of the building. It would then become a solid screen. The open area would be basically a fence, but it would match the color and contour of the buildings, therefore would create that solid screening that's required by the code. We would ask that in item 2 that you would allow the buildings to become the solid screening. And then finally, we would also ask that in number 7 that you waive the 25-foot compatibility setback. Again, you're setting it back from ourselves. When we develop that residential property, there's probably going to be some landscaping, just because if you're going to develop residential property, you're going to have to do something between those two, and it'll be more than the 5 feet that's there. So we would ask you to get rid of that in here and let us deal with that when we develop the south property. So to summarize, and again, I'm sorry, I know you've had a long day, we're okay with number 1. We don't have any problem with the uses. In number 2, we would ask you to allow the buildings and the fence in a revised site plan to be the solid screening. In number 3, we would ask you to eliminate the last part of the last sentence. Number 4, we have no issue with. Number 5, we would ask you to eliminate the last part of that last sentence. Number 6, we have no issue with. And number 7, we would ask that you would change the compatibility setback to 20 feet. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, and I apologize if I rushed through it. I tried to make sure I got under my time, but also make sure I considered your time.
A quick question. On the south side, on your site plan,
Yes.
you also have indicated berms.
That's
intending to.
Yes, those will be in development with the residential, but we have no problem putting those berms in. That's a plan. But because it isn't continuous, that was going to be more of a landscape, nice feature to separate the commercial from the residential that he intends to develop to the south. The idea there would be that the solid screening that's required by the code would be the buildings, which is allowed in the code, I believe, as long as it's contiguous and it matches and it's all the same color and same materials. And then, yes, we would have those berms involved in the second part of the development.
That's what I was getting at, was if we allow the fencing, if you will, between the buildings there on the south side, that those berms would be included in that design.
Correct. That would be included as well in the revised site plan.
Soften it a little bit for the requirement that we got there. And then you've got, instead of a 25-foot compatibility setback, you want a 20-foot.
Correct, we would request that you
compatibility
waive,
setback on
you
number
recommend that the county commission waive that to a 20-foot. I mean, there really is no point to going through an administrative adjustment when we're here before you and the county commission has the right to waive that. And I don't believe that there's
If we
been
recommended-
anybody that's expressed a concern with what we're doing there, and that site plan was part of our application.
Do we have any other questions?
I'll stand by. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. There's nobody here in City Hall, in the council chambers, so is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Yes, did you have something you wanted to add, Philip?
Nope, I just came here.
Okay, do we have, what's the will of the commission? We have no will.
I guess I want to ask staff, I can see some merit in it when they own the property next to it, but how does staff feel about that?
This is Josh, I make a motion to approve for staff comment.
Got a motion,
I'll second that.
and it's the second, it's been moved and seconded, and,
Was that per staff comments? Is that what he said?
what the motion, Josh, was,
Yes, the motion was approved for staff comments.
The second was the same.
okay, so you're not addressing any of the,
Changing any of the conditions that the applicant wanted?
yeah, the applicant had some items that he wanted addressed. Does your motion include that, or does your motion not cover any of those requests?
I could take them line by line, but basically what I was looking at is for what the we were looking at right now, what's written.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? There was some laughter going on in the background. I didn't hear all you said.
Yes, I can take them line by line of what Greg was saying. But what I was gonna say is, I have it per staff comment, that's what I was saying, per the motion.
Okay.
Did you hear me? Sorry, I think I'm cutting out.
Yeah, you're cutting out, and it sounds like there's some background noises, so it's really hard to, I love this virtual stuff. Oh. Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
I'm curious again from staff's comments, since it is owned by the same property owner.
Tell us what you think.
In many ways, I would say that these are standard conditions that we apply. However, you know, the agent has brought up that, yes, they do own the property to the south. So I would say it's the will of the planning commission at this point. Many of those standards are in place because if there are different property owners, we're trying to mitigate the impacts to the other properties, including visual impacts. Here it's kind of a unique situation where the property owner owns both. And so I think part of the factor is, will they do things to mitigate that themselves in the future, or, you know, people will know, they'll be aware of it when they do that development further to the south. So yeah, I think those are things to think about, but it's to the will of the MAPC.
Did you have?
Basically though, since they do own it to the south, some of these things that we would reduce the requirement of, if they develop to the south, they're gonna have to do those things.
Well, you know, I look here and I see, you know, equipment on top of the roofs, right? If they put equipment on top of the roofs, there's only certain ways that you can mitigate that because they're so high. But that's something that they're gonna know about because obviously they own the property. So And it's future development that we're talking about to the south. So I would suspect that this would be in place, the storage would be in place before that other sequence of development. So it will be a known factor for the folks who are buying into that.
And what we see a lot going on now is that stuff's all screened when it is on a roof, so you don't actually see the units. Good examples of May School District building a new building, and lo and behold, guess what they wrapped around all the mechanic equipment? Metal wall panels.
Yeah. Is there, would a compromise be, should the property to the south sell to somebody else, that then these requirements would take effect?
I just don't know how you enforce that.
No.
Okay.
I think that would just be a very hard way to enforce, because you could write it in here, but when they sell the property, they don't address the protective overlay, like that wouldn't necessarily.
But whoever buys the property knows it's there, so.
That's,
I mean,
that's,
what's a chicken and egg?
yeah, that's a push.
And I
Again,
guess,
it then just falls on to enforcement of if somebody, it would be on the people who buy it to then, you know, investigate it and make sure it gets enforced.
Okay.
I guess I'd make a substitute motion that we would accept changes that was made by the applicant or the agent. The setback, I mean, the county's gonna decide that. And so the rest of it's just, I don't have a problem with, since they do own that property.
And I would second that motion. The substitute motion. Yes, Mr. Warren?
My only question, I'm leaning towards agreeing with the substitute motion. My only question is, you're talking about if the property were to sell, how does the buyer of that property know that this new set of rules, in other words, you can go to the book and say, okay, you got these kind of setbacks, and all of a sudden now we've got a property that doesn't have those setbacks. How does a buyer of the, of the new property, let's take the property to the south, know that the property to the north of them has got a different set of rules?
In that case, I think you've got two circumstances. You've got one, if these storage units are already developed, they're obviously already there, so they can look out and see it. And if not, I think that's part of the due diligence of checking out the zoning of the adjoining properties nearby, and so that's where this would show up.
Mr. Warren, if you'd like, I have an answer for that question, but you have to call me.
I'd like to hear the applicant's answer.
I appreciate that. I think that actually condition number 4 solves that issue, because if the property is sold, which we don't have any intention to do, but if it is, we'll have to do a lot split. Number 4 requires us to keep the berm on the property with the commercial. So there would be more than the required setback, so that berm then would be created as the buffer from the residential to the south if we sold that property. So we'd have to do a lot split. This condition requires that lot split be on the south end of the berm as based on condition 4. So I think that takes care of that issue.
Why?
All right, are there any other questions on we'll take up the substitute motion then first. All those in favor of the substitute motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, our last case is 2020, Zone 2021, located at 13710 West Maple.
Bill Longnecker, Senior Planner, Current Plans. As the chair noted, this is zone case 2021-21. This is a request for down zoning on properties that are zone NR, which you can see on the screen, and a portion of some of the subject properties are zoned LC. The bulk of the property is already zoned GO. Could you point at the bulk of those properties, please? That is the bulk of the property. That is Lot 3 of the Heritage of Auburn Hills edition. And then you see the blue, that is zoned NR, and that is also part of the Heritage Auburn Hills edition. And then below that is some LC zone property. Part of that is also part of the Heritage of Auburn Hills edition. So the bulk of the property is already zoned G, general office. We're going to take the NR and we're going to take a portion of the LC that is up against the NR and rezone that GO. And then we've got some old protective overlays that overlap into the subject property. That would be protective overlay 301 and 311, and there's also protective overlay 309. They're going to use that to expand onto all the subject properties and eliminate protective overlays 1 and 11 off of those properties. So the reason you see all those properties outlined is not because that's all being rezoned. It's just going to be rezoned to those areas that I noted. But those protective overlays are all in those properties that we have, including that west property, which we have that one of the POs lapping over into that GO portion. That's the main part of the properties. The applicants are looking to do a mix of residential development that could be single family, duplex, or multifamily, and possible office, medical service, or assisted living. Those are the uses that they're looking at. All those uses are permitted by right in the GO zoning district. One of the questions we've had from folks that have called up about this case is right above the GO property that is on the corner. Go on down to the corner, please, Paul, right on Maple and 135th. Keep going, right there. Right above that, and in between the subject properties and that property, there's still some LC zoning, and that will remain LC, and that is currently owned by Brahms. So we've had quite a few folks asking, well, is Brahms going or coming? Well, at this point, it's still owned by Brahms. So
we still have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing that. Thank you for checking.
Want to make sure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
We got to make sure we still have a quorum.
Oh, yeah.
I thought we were sitting at 8, but we were sitting at 9. So
wow, I'd hate to be sitting around here and find that out. Let's continue. Okay, so, yeah, the Brahms is still going to be there, but you're going to have additional buffer from that Brahms by the extension of that GO property onto the NR property, which is neighborhood retail, and also a portion of that limited commercial property that's also part of the subject sites that's right below that NR site. So we're down zoning. We're down zoning, and we're removing all kinds of retail. No retail is allowed on GO. You're looking at what they're proposing, again, is some type of residential development. It could be mixed, or it could be predominantly one or the other, perhaps office, which is permitted, medical service, which is already established on that northwest corner where we've got medical services down on the intersection, Paul. There you go, keep going, 135th and Maple, come on up, come on up. Oh, over. There you go. That's where the bank's at. So let's go ahead and go to the area and let's look at the development of the area. The site itself, as you can see, is undeveloped. You've got development all around it. You've got single-family residential development to the north and to the west. And you've got the just mentioned medical services right there on the northwest corner of Maple and 135th. Right next to the medical services, you've got LC's owned property that has a bank with a drive-through. So we're looking to develop this property. Access to the property will be gated. Access will be provided by a private street. And they've got cross-lot access, emergency access to the south through that property that's down by the bank. Looking across 135th, you've got more single-family residential development directly across the street. Down on the northeast corner, you've got a drugstore. To the south, you've got another bank, and also on the southeast corner, you've got a large grocery store and strip retail. And just below the bank, you've got part of the Auburn Hills Golf Course. So this is basically the last piece of property in this area that needs to be developed. Also, it should be noted that you've got a reserve that is separating the subject property from the single-family residents that are just out of sight but abutting that reserve. Staff is recommending approval of this. We've gone through the PO with the applicant. GEO standards in regards to setbacks are more stringent. The applicant is also looking at only having a maximum height of 35 feet, which reflects more of a residential standard than it would any type of office type development. That pretty well wraps it up. I'll stand for questions.
Questions for staff? Mr. Warren.
Bill, sometimes with all these overlays and everything, it becomes a fog to me. You know.
Did you look at the case history on this thing?
So my question to you is I don't know this is kind of a downzoning. Is there anything on here that someone's going to come back and says, why didn't you ask this question, or why is there anything controversial that's hidden in the maze of stuff that I should be asking about that you looked at and thought this might be a concern for somebody down the line, or is this pretty straightforward?
Well, when you take away the overlays that are there and you get to what the applicant proposes, and keep in mind that the base zoning is GO, and a protective overlay by definition is puts restrictions on that. That means you can develop as the base zoning says, but you can't go beyond that. What the applicant is proposing, they haven't objected to, is that, again, your base zoning is GO, so you've got certain standards there that you cannot exceed. It is interesting, though, we did have a vacation case. That's the most recent history on this properties, where we eliminated platted easements. There's not going to be a replat on this property, so it's going to be development on a large site. The private street, which is provides access off 135th, is going to be narrower than your city streets. Typically on a private street, you're going to have easements along that private street on both sides. That's pretty well going to establish your setbacks in regards you can't build into them. So you're going to have, for lack of there was a term that we used, and I haven't seen it used for a while, but it's like a cluster development. And you've got a tighter, more dense development on a single piece of property. So this could be developed with something like patio homes on one lot, and or it could be, they're also proposing some duplexes. The duplexes, as they're proposing right now, would be in the interior, and they would be 10 or less. But what I'm thinking is, in this area, you see a lot. You've seen recently patio homes being built where you're tighter on the setbacks, and you've got private streets. Based on that, and working with MAPC in the past on these, I'm anticipating. That doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but the way they've presented it, and the way this property is going to be is laid out as one lot, I would think it'd be something like that. Now, the agent is here, and he could answer that question.
That helped a lot, thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time?
Is this, I was actually the one I'm the resident that signaled for this to get heard.
And
I was wondering,
sir,
is this one, go ahead, sorry.
Sir, you'll have your opportunity after the agent speaks. Trust me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll call
sorry.
for you.
I don't know how this works. Sorry.
You're perfectly okay. That's fine. We get the staff, and then we get the agent, and then once the agent is done, then we go to public comment. So you'll get your turn just as soon as we get the agent with his turn. And I see that Mr. Lindeback is on the horn there, so you're up.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon, Brian Lindeback, 411 North Webb Road, MKEC Engineering, on behalf of the owners and applicant. Yes, thank you, Mr. Longnecker, for the great presentation. Everything is as he has said. One thing I would note is that we have increased provisions that would protect the neighborhood as well. I think that's noteworthy. We've added some items that would be beneficial for landscaping. We've added items of trash pickup and other things of that nature that would be a courtesy to the neighborhood. So I think those are some items to note. We have also defined our multifamily very specifically in the protective overlay. So I think if you haven't seen that, it would be good to note that there's specific provisions for that, so that you wouldn't have a typical multifamily parcel as currently defined as multifamily. So that's something that to note. Other than that, I would stand for any questions you may have. I think it'll be right, make mention that, yes, the Brahms parcel, I know that was asked about, that is still owned by Brahms. It's the parcel directly north of the property on the corner, on the hard corner of the intersection. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for the agent? There's no one in the council chambers, so we will open it up to people that are listening in virtually. And Mr. Schutz, now it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. I guess my question would be, I mean, do you guys have a set plan already intact of what you're going to do? Because I know I just heard, there was mention, it might be like a medical office or some sort of office building. I guess that would be pretty much my only question. I was kind of under the idea that this might be the patio home setup or townhomes or something like that. And do you guys have a direction specifically you're trying to go, or you're just, leaving the options open, I guess?
Well, as it's been presented by the applicant, a office building or medical services would be an option on a portion of this property. And I've heard nothing from the agent that has withdrawn that possibility. All those are allowed by right with the GO, but again, the other possibilities are some type of residential development of varying density. So, the applicant would have to answer that question specifically, because with the information I have, I can't give a yay or nay on that.
Okay. And the applicant will be coming back momentarily to respond to any other questions that we might have from those that are listening virtually. So, yes, Mr. Wadle?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can we get the speaker's address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Jacob, can you give us your address, please, for the record?
Yeah, it's 222 South Decker Court.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the agent. Mr. Lindeback, you have
Yes.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Thank you, Mr. Green. Yes, to answer the question, it's really going to be a determinant on the market conditions. Right now, it seems like there will be a demand for some residential there. However, if that demand goes away, we would pivot to more of an office type use. But that would be what we would probably desire, is to have a residential buffer to the commercial activities on the corner of the property and of course, the anticipated Brahms. This would provide a buffer to that. So at this time, that's our plan is to follow the market and look at development in that manner.
So you don't have a scoop for us on what's going to be going there? Sorry.
Brian, do you have anything for our eyes only?
No.
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Lindeback. We'll
Thank
bring
you.
the conversation back to the commission for action.
Move to approve per staff recommendations.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Dool, to approve per staff comment. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And are there any other items that you need to bring forward to the
Thank you.
Thank you.
commission tonight?
No,
Or this
sir.
afternoon still?
Tonight, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
This conference